Welcome to Moral Side of the News. I'm John Blim with the WHAS Crusade for Children. I'm joined by a distinguished panel, Rabbi Emerita Gaylia Rooks, the Temple, Reverend David Harkleroad, South Point Church, New Albany, Reverend Clay Calloway, West Louisville Ministers Coalition, and Father Bill Hammer, St. Margaret Mary and St. William Catholic Churches. It's been a heartbreaking week in Louisville, and on today's program, we grieve the deaths of 5 people killed by a co-worker at Old National Bank downtown. 9 others were injured, including Officer Nicholas Wilt, who had been sworn into Louisville Metro Police just days earlier. There are no words for something so horrific. Gun laws and mental health are at the forefront of conversations again, but we begin, panel, with honoring the lives of those lost. Josh Barrick, Jim Tutt, Tommy Elliott, Juliana Farmer, and Deanna Eckert. Who'd like to start off today?
This has impacted more than just the immediate friends and families of those who were killed and injured, but our hearts go out especially to those people and to our fair city. It's just very, very difficult to, it happens so frequently now in America, which is beyond a tragedy. I fear that people become inured to this kind of tragic, senseless violence, and then it hits your own backyard and you realize, wow, that was, if not someone I knew, the person who cuts my hair's next door neighbor, or it's, we're a small community and we're connected to one another, and this really hits home. And every time it happens, it hits home, whether it's young school children or people in a grocery store or a mall or a club. I don't want anything that any of us say on the program today in any way to appear as if that's not the number one thing, is how heartbroken we are at this tragic loss. But having said that, I personally, speaking for myself now, believe that this is largely a preventable loss, and that I don't know what it's going to take, but when the people of America decide that we can have sensible gun laws, that we can limit access to weapons of war, not guns, but literal military equipment, that they will vote out of office those people, and it's all public record, how much money they receive from the gun lobbies and the manufacturers, and vote those people out of office and instead choose people who value life over political gain.
Well, Gaylia, I'll just second what you said. It's a tragedy, and our hearts are going out to the families, the coworkers, the loved ones, and friends. And it is a small community, as you said. My own neighbor, I did not realize worked at the bank, and he was scheduled to be downtown, and they moved him last minute, and he was on the call, on a Zoom call with them when the shooting happened. So this is affecting our whole community, and we're in Southern Indiana, so it's everywhere. So yeah, I'm heartbroken, and honestly, I'm today more than any day this week so far angered by it. I'm very, very upset. I was talking to someone before the show that this is just becoming normal, as you said, Gaylia, in our country, in our nation, and it's becoming so common. My daughter's in preschool, and they're practicing drills, hiding in the closet, and this is not an okay situation for our country. And the solutions are difficult. I agree. This is not happening in a vacuum. This isn't happening in other countries in this way. It's not happening. It has not happened in our history in this way. Something is happening in our culture. And I am not opposed to stricter gun laws. We can talk more about that. But the Judeo-Christian story starts with someone being murdered with a rock. And it's, I think at the end of the day, a heart problem. And I think we have an issue in our society now that you said, Gaylia, that people are desensitized. If you look at movies and video games and just everything in our culture, I think there is a desensitization going on. And I think there's a moral decay in our society. We are living in a society that says there are no absolutes. There are no realities. Everything is relative, and we're moving so quickly. We're disintegrating so quickly that I fear we're going to continue to see these things until we'll come back to some absolute truths and begin to say there's right and there's wrong, and that there is truth in our world.
As you mentioned, Dave, you doubled, I triple now. I mean, the fact is that this is not the first time this has happened in our community. Those of us a little older, we remember a company called Standard Gravure. And again, the kind of experience with a large number of people at work being killed by an employee. And I am deeply, deeply hurting that it's going to happen again. Because if time passes, it's going to happen again if nothing changes. And right now, maintaining the present policies that enable this to happen more easily, I agree, it's not preventable completely. But if somebody goes crazy with a knife, you can't kill people from a distance. If somebody goes crazy, with a revolver, you can't fire that many shots. There's lots of ways in which this is also being enabled. And I don't understand how other constitutional rights, like freedom of speech, but we limit freedom of speech. You can't perjure. You can't lie under oath. That's not freedom of speech.
And you can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
Another example, yes.
Dangerous. And if this isn't dangerous.
Or again, we acknowledge freedom of the press, and rightly so, but you can't libel. You can't, again, do things with every freedom to do anything you want. And we understand that across the board, except in this one area. And that is one thing I find frustrating, but certainly I have in our community experienced more people using the time for prayer and praying for all those who've died, including particularly, I think a lot of prayers have been offered for the family of the perpetrator as well, that everybody is hurting. Everybody's hurting right now. And we need to be mindful of that as we acknowledge we're hurting as well.
Well, I mean, a lot has been said. I want to piggyback on a few words that's been stated so far. Someone mentioned earlier on there's no words. Well, there are no words, and the no words are coming from those that, sad to say, are those that lawmakers who permit some of the most lax gun laws in all of America right here in the state of Kentucky. And you haven't heard any words from those lawmakers who have been directly responsible for having the most lax gun laws in the nation. So clearly it's a situation of no words. It doesn't matter. I mean, I refrain from referring to these as tragedies. This is a trend. Tragedies are things that don't happen on rare occasions. This happens so regularly, it clearly would qualify as a trend with no end. You don't know when it's going to happen. You can be assured it's going to happen again. So this is a trend, a reoccurring trend. And the sad reality is this so-called lax gun laws. I brought a book, found my book today of the Constitution. I don't know if you can see it on camera. This little small book, okay, of the U.S. Constitution and the Kentucky Constitution. I was amazed at how few words are denoted. This is the U.S. Constitution, this part, and this is the Kentucky Constitution. Kentucky Constitution is about 4 times as thick as the U.S. Constitution. So the U.S. Constitution is amazingly simple. I mean, it is so simple. You could read the entire thing in 30 minutes tops, and the Bill of Rights in less than 6 minutes. It's a very simple document. And even the so-called Second Amendment, which I refuse to call it that, it's a well-regulated militia amendment. That's what it is. It's the well-regulated militia amendment. That is what it was, the intent and the content. It's the well-regulated militia amendment. And again, the only authority, the only body that has the ability, the power, and the obligation to regulate is the government. And the government refuses to regulate, to do its job and regulate. You regulate everything else, but you don't regulate this very destructive area of American society that's causing carnage in untold numbers. I think we need to just have just a running total of all the mass shootings caused by the AR-15s alone, just the assault weapons alone, and have just a running total. And whenever you have a situation like this, just keep running that tape over and over again. Have it pre-programmed in, so you can see just how ridiculous and how moronic it is to keep addressing this recurring trend that happens over and over again. Isolated is sad that many people are innocent. Most of the victims are innocent, just like the innocent children in Nashville and innocent children in Sandy Hook. The victims are oftentimes innocent; they can't shoot back. You know, I've been a sworn-in Kentucky official. I was a Kentucky Human Relations Commission. Anyone that's ever been an official, Kentucky official, you had to swear in, making that oath that you have not participated in a duel. That might sound archaic. That might sound antiquated, but believe it or not, that is really a more humane way of handling a dispute than for someone to come in with an assault weapon because he's agreed to go into a conference room because he is agreed with what that company has done in his feelings against him, and go into ambush people with an assault weapon. Be a different story if he had been engaged face to face with one person at a time and engaged in a duel. That would have been a much more equitable way to handle that dispute, using an archaic piece of Kentucky law that really would be a giant step in the right direction. Let's just go back to the duels again. Mano to mano, bullet to bullet, gun to gun. You have the same amount of bullets that I have, and just square up and handle your disputes that way. So it's an insane scenario that keeps recurring over and over again. I think you need to just push on these shows, Bill. John, just push rinse and repeat. And until the lawmakers have the courage enough to address it and do something about it, there's a lot that can be done. It's not a matter of taking your guns away. It's a matter of just doing your job and not only regulating, but regulating well the way the Constitution obligates you to do it. I think that's a good place to start and end.
Well, even under President Clinton's administration, we made a little bit of progress, but then those were all rolled back under the last administration. And, when you talk about the Bill of Rights and the well-regulated militia, I mean, we're not talking anymore about muskets that fire one ball at a time. And if we were, you're right, this kind of mass carnage would not happen. Hunting rifles, well, other than a few people who use automatic weapons from helicopters to consider that sporting to go after animals. A panel member of ours, Father Tony Smith, he hunts. He has a gun, or I think he actually has a number of guns, but he doesn't have that kind of, whether they're AR-15s, automatic weapons, repeated ones. I read an article, I can't remember the guy's name, I could look it up, but, and he was talking about machine guns. Why don't we ever hear about machine guns? There are regulations that limit the purchase of machine guns in certain ways, such that, according to this article, I did not bother to fact check the man, but according to this article, you never hear about, because there haven't been mass shootings or multiple murders and stuff done with machine guns, even though there are plenty of machine guns in this country, because of the way they are regulated. And, the far right is trying to make it, they're coming for our guns, they're coming for our guns. No, you can have guns. You just can't have guns of military grade that have this incredible amount of carnage where it's not, pull the trigger once and kill one person, where it's just, I mean, that would be at least a start, some kind of a start. You use the word insane. Clay, I can't even remember the context, but popped in my head. The definition of insanity is when
same thing,
right. Same thing over and over again and expect different results. We offer our thoughts and prayers, our thoughts and prayers, our thoughts and prayers every time there's another one of these tragedies. And I got to tell you, I am so. We don't need thoughts and prayers. We need action. We need people to stand up to the gun lobby, which spends millions and millions of dollars every year on so many, I mean, not just in Kentucky, but also in Kentucky. I know that Representative John Yarmouth wears a big red F on his lapel, and that stands for the grade that the NRA gave him. And he wears it with great pride. And I don't think anyone who doesn't have an F should be allowed to hold office because they don't really care about their constituents as much as they care about the political donations they are receiving from gun manufacturers and the NRA.
Well, you mentioned the gun NRA. That's actually a sin in the Bible to have judges bribe. In Deuteronomy, it condemns bribery of judges. So if you're being influenced by a lobbyist in any way, then your decision is influenced by that, that's a bribe in the purest sense of the word.
I'm not sure what you're referring to in Deuteronomy, but in Leviticus 19, in the Holiness Code, it mentions. Right. And I mean, you don't have to be a biblical scholar. You don't have to be a religious person at all to know that if you receive, let's say you only get, $8 million from the NRA into your war chest, as they call it, to be able to have, ads and political campaigns, then I appreciate you calling it what it is. It's a bribe.
It's a bribe. It's a bribe.
Well, go ahead, Dave. I'll say this, friends. I want to be clear on my part about something. I'm very open to more gun regulation, very open. If it'll protect my kids at school, other people listening, their kids at school, if it will protect folks at work, I'm open to more gun regulation. But honestly, I think it's a two-dimensional argument to make this only a legislative solution. We have a mental health crisis. I think a lot of this does play into the zeitgeist of our age that says you can define yourself. Everything is about you. There are no absolutes. There's no truth. You decide your truth. You walk your truth. That is a big part of this problem, in my opinion. And, I'd like to link in another piece to the conversation that's been on my mind in light of this. Everyone appropriately is praising the Louisville Police Department for their response time, and I will agree with that. Thank you, Lord, and thank you, Louisville Police Department, for your rapid response and for saving lives. But, it's a lot of the same people who 3 years ago wanted to defund our police department. And we have a difficult tension in our society. When things aren't going well, we don't want the police. And when we're having a problem, we want the police. And I think some people need to own that situation. Portland, there's a school in Portland that just rearmed their law enforcement. They had disarmed them and they've rearmed them. And I think our society, our city, needs to come to terms with the fact that while they're not perfect, we're thankful for our law enforcement. And we're thankful that they are armed and willing to use force when they have to.
Well, but getting back to LMPD, there was a Justice Department report issued about a month ago that was extremely condemning of the police department's practice in Louisville, Kentucky. So it's not all or nothing. It has been corrupt for a long time. And many people have been victims by this police department that needed an overhaul well over the years. And many people were innocent victims because of the injustice of this police department. So it's not a matter of all or nothing or you defund, defund. It's a matter of doing it right, the right way, to the right degree. I think that this is, get back to this insanity part. And mental illness. I had filled out forms before on purchasing firearms in the state of Kentucky. There's no reference on those forms relating to mental illness. I mean, there's nothing that would show up on a farm to purchase a firearm in the state of Kentucky that would call your mental fitness into question.
Mhm.
That alone is a problem. You have people that are certifiably mentally ill that the legislators say it's okay to purchase a firearm that they can use to kill with.
Along that line, I was thinking, the mental illness capacity, the parents of the child have indicated, yes, they were aware their son was struggling with some mental health issues and they were trying to address it. At least as of the time of this taping, there's not been any release of the letter he left. There's still uncertainty as to all the motivation behind this. But again, the other contributing factors, one that came to my mind was when it talked about how he himself was live streaming what he was doing. And I have never played any of these games, but I've watched a couple of people play them over their shoulder, where you are given that view and you're, in your electronically with your gun and firing, and you're looking at people moving around, looking at people moving between places, and you're firing, trying to kill them in these games that are out there. And so some of that happening also caught my mind, made me wonder, was he also living out, as he was trying to live stream this, that same experience you can have any day of the week you want, playing games?
The reason I disagree with that, Bill, with all due respect, and these games are horribly violent, and some of them you can turn off the blood so it's not as gory. I mean, I am okay, but other countries, people in other countries also play those video games, and they do not have the kind of violence that we have. So I'm not saying that that's not perhaps a piece of the pie, but I think that there are more immediate things we can address, such as the fact that, as this man's parents said, as you said, that he was struggling with mental health issues and that they were trying to address those. But what was it, just a few weeks before this happened, he went out and legally purchased this weapon.
Less than
a week before. It was a week before.
Absolutely.
1 week before, that's what I thought.
Well, Dr. King said something that was very appropriate. He said that I cannot legislate you to love me, but I can legislate against you killing me. Mm-hmm. So it's true, many other countries have these games, but they also have laws in place where you don't have access to these kind of assault weapons to act out those frustrations. So they have legislation that stops you from killing me. You can still hate me all you want to, but you have to kill me retail, not wholesale. So there's a way to regulate that to the point where the carnage will nowhere near be where it is. You cannot kill your way to heal. You cannot kill your way to wholeness. Killing cannot lead to healing in any nation. So I think that they have to come at some point that is not the way to heal the nation. You can't kill your way there. It needs another way to heal and not kill.
Well, part of what I was trying to pick up on was that this has never happened before. And all these mass killings, nobody themselves has been transmitting it while they're doing it to other people out there. That's never happened before in my knowledge. And that I was picking up on, but also I know that there have been certainly, times when people are, streaming it in other fashions, people observing it or watching it going on. But this is introducing something new. And one of the past suggested criticisms, sometimes of the press, and wondering, is it the notoriety that sometimes these people are looking for themselves by knowing their name is going to get published, by knowing that they're going to become quote unquote famous,
infamous.
And so that that's part of the point I was trying to make, that at least to my knowledge, this has never happened before, where the person doing the killing was live streaming exactly what they were doing. So something's going on again, another step.
We have about 3 minutes left. So in a healing idea, we've about 3 minutes left. What will you say to people or your congregations in the weeks to come to give them hope?
Well, this coming week, go ahead. This coming weekend, we will be having specific prayers addressed in our normal prayer rites to do that. And particularly, I think, as all three major monotheistic religions are celebrating important feasts this time: Passover, Easter, and Ramadan. It just so happens they all line up this year. So we're all looking at the way our relationship with God is, and we're called to live. And God is the true source of freedom and healing.
I would just say, put some feet to your prayer. You know, James, the book of James says, faith without works is dead. So if you pray, but also let your faith feed your feet so you can take some action in this matter. To do something this week that will engage you into something that would engage the policies that allow this to be permitted to happen in our society.
Right. Someone asked me, how can God let this happen with innocent people? Which, of course, has been asked from the time of Job through the Holocaust and every tragedy and every civilization. And I say, you know, that's what free will is. That's what makes us human beings instead of animals. And where is God during all of this? God is weeping at the choices that many human beings are making. So my response is it's time to act, and we can act, we can vote people who are not willing to stand up against the gun lobby. We can vote them out of office.
Yeah, we're going to be having some special times of prayer as a church, hoping for some healing and encouragement for folks. And, you know, I would just encourage anyone that might be listening, if you need help, go get it. Reach out to somebody, get the help that you need. The great commandment is love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself. Many of us, we go about our day, we're busy, we don't think about the person next to us. But if someone had just lived into this young man's life a little bit, the shooter, if someone had just seen a red flag and taken some time, we could have had a different outcome. And so I think all of us need to be aware that while I'm not justifying him at all, he was hurting. He clearly, something was wrong, and someone could have potentially seen it. And so I think we all need to take an extra measure of observation and love for the people around us. And, you know, just Father Bill, what you shared with us off the air, that there was a person standing in front of you and you said, this is the person the Lord's put in front of me right now, and I'm going to be present with them. So hopefully we can all show a little more humanity.
And if you need help, whether it's coping with what just happened or just in general and the isolation that COVID has brought, please reach out to clergy, reach out to family, Catholic, Jewish. I mean, everyone has counseling, community counseling services.
And that'll bring to a close this edition of Moral Side of the News. Thank you, panel. Gaylia Rooks, David Harkleroad, Clay Calloway, and Bill Hammer. As we wrap up today, we take a moment to honor those who died. Josh Barrick, Jim Tutt, Tommy Elliott, Juliana Farmer, and Deanna Eckert.